Our Across the Aisle segment tonight. Where are the Democrats condemning corruption in the Senate? Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, a Democrat, is on trial for felony corruption. He's charged with accepting bribes, gifts, and luxury travel in exchange for trying to derail the investigation into a man he calls his friend, Dr. Salman Melgen, a man who was charged and eventually convicted of massive Medicare fraud. Why are so many Democrats refusing to comment on this? Why won't they condemn Menendez's corruption? Why won't they call for him to resign? With me now, professor and author of Obama's America, a transformative vision of our national identity, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you, friend.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Ian, we talked about the same topic in the last segment with a Republican. Now we're going to talk about it with you, a Democrat. Let me ask you very bluntly, why won't elected Democrats, that is, Democrats in the House of Representatives, Democrats in Congress, leaders of the Democratic Party at the DNC, why won't they disavow and condemn Senator Menendez's corruption?
Well, I think they're waiting for the trial to end. Generally in this country, that's what we do. And Menendez may be convicted or he may not be convicted. If he's not convicted, he may have a Republican to thank. You probably remember Governor Bob McDonnell, a Republican of Virginia, who was convicted of corruption a couple of years back, but then his conviction was overturned by the United States Supreme Court when they ruled that the definition of what exactly was corruption was being applied much too broadly. So if Menendez skates here, he can probably call Governor McDonnell up and thank him for that. And I think that's what Democrats are waiting for. They're waiting to see exactly what happens.
Right, and that's a different topic because if corruption like this is actually legal, we may have a bigger problem on our hands for both parties. If that kind of stuff is something that's A-OK in the United States Senate, that's way bigger of a problem than someone breaking the law. But wait a second, let me make sure I understand you. So you're basically talking about the presumption of innocence here, that Senator Menendez is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. That's the way our country operates. It's the way on which our criminal justice system was built here. And I agree with you. But let me ask you, is that same standard applied to President Trump when given all these allegations of collusion and corruption between he and Russia?
Well, I don't think anybody that I know of has called on the president to resign. I shouldn't say anybody that I know of. You know, any responsible elected official calling on him to resign. Nobody's asking him to resign from office yet. Those investigations have to play out.
Wait a second. There have been multiple elected Democrats who have called for the impeachment of President Trump. Maxine Waters is the first name that comes to mind. I mean, there are, I would say, most liberal commentators on cable news, on the three-letter networks have called at some point for the impeachment of President Trump or presumed his guilt. I don't think it's being, that standard of innocent until proven guilty is being applied equally between the two cases.
Well, I used the word resign, not impeach. Impeach is an indictment, right? Conviction is what leads to removal from office or resignation. Look, at the end of the day, whether it's Donald Trump saying Susan Rice is guilty of a crime for unmasking X, Y, and Z, when a few weeks later it was clearly demonstrated that she wasn't, there are plenty of people who will jump on a charge, or even in that case, create a charge when there is no charge in court, to convict people who haven't yet been convicted. Everybody deserves the same standard, Democrat or Republican. I'm not going to defend anybody who's convicted Donald Trump in their own minds, and I'm not going to defend anybody who, I'm not going to condemn anybody yet for where they're taking their stance on Menendez. We need to see what happens. But Robert Menendez has clearly done some things that I would find distasteful, that I do find distasteful, and whether they're illegal or not is up to a jury and a judge to decide. Right,
and if they are legal, it's something that you and I guess the voters should decide whether we want that stuff to be legal. All right, let me pose you the big if question then. If he is convicted of this, should he resign? Because it's actually not, believe it or not, and this is shocking, it's actually not automatic. His resignation, he's not required to resign from the Senate, even if he's convicted of a felony. He can choose to resign, or his fellow senators can vote to remove him from office. But ultimately, at least at the beginning, it would be his choice. If he's convicted, should he resign?
If he is convicted, he should not resign, and Democrats should not vote to remove him until the day that the new governor of New Jersey is sworn in. And the reason for that is a very simple answer, and it's a two-word answer, and the answer to that is Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland.
Wait a second. This is astonishing to me. Yes. This is astonishing to me. So you think that it is okay, morally okay, a moral equivalence even, because you're still bitter about Merrick Garland, If this senator is convicted of corruption, felony corruption, you think it's appropriate to let him remain in the United States Senate, where he has access to money and power and classified information, a criminal who has abused his power in office just to score a political point against Republicans?
To paraphrase my favorite half-term governor, you betcha. That seat on the Supreme Court, which is the single most important seat in American jurisprudence, one that switches the court from conservative to liberal, was stolen by the Republican Party. This is not about scoring political points. This is about making our country a better place.
No laws were broken whatsoever.
That's right.
If Menendez is convicted, a law was broken. If he's convicted, that's what it means.
Yep.
He is convicted of a crime. So you think a crime justifies a tactical, strategic rule in the Senate that allowed the court to be different? That is absolutely shocking to me. Although I do appreciate your honesty, because most elected Democrats won't even say as much as that. Ian, thanks for being on the show.